want to show you today what are some of the Atmos-specific plugins that I find myself using. One of the questions people ask a lot is, what plugins do you need to work in Dolby Atmos? And the truth is, there aren't really specific plugins that you have to use. You can use the plugins that you've been using. The plugins I want to show you today, these are some Atmos-specific plugins that I use, or at least immersive plugins that I use regularly, but you don't need to have any of these. You might go through this and say, ooh, that would be helpful. Ooh, I would like to have that. But I would just say, make a wish list and pick them up when you can or when they're on sale or however, it works for you. I have done some more in-depth videos on some of these plugins that you can go look at if you'd like. I'll put links to those when they come up, and I'll put links to these plugins down below in the description so you can check them out. I do have affiliate links on some of these, but a lot of these are just what I use. I do have relationships and partnerships with some of these developers, but this is not a sponsored video. Nobody asked me to make this on that end of things. These are just what I'm using. Also, for context, I'm filming this at the end of April in 2025. This is just what I'm using right now. It will likely change over the next year, I'm sure, over the next few months, because a lot of the stuff I wasn't using it when I first got into Atmos, because again, you don't need to have this stuff. Hey, before we dive in though, and I show you my list of Atmos plugins, go down below and leave me a comment. What are your favorite immersive and Atmos capable plugins that you are using right now? What are some things that you're looking for a plugin to do in immersive? Go throw that in the comments down below and then check the video out and see, is there something that I mentioned that you also like, or is there something I missed? Go throw that down there below. But let's take a look at the Atmos plugins that I'm using. First up, the Dolby Atmos Music Panner. I use this a lot for sequenced panning moves. For example, if I hit play, you can just see it kind of rotating around. I have some other presets in here, like, if I just want things to kind of jump around and do random things. What are some other things that are in here? Let's see. Zigzag, what does that do? Yeah, so I've just got some kind of presets I've made of general moves. If I want a sound to kind of do moves like that and to keep on doing them, this is what I use to do that with. This plugin comes with the external Dolby Atmos renderer, and it does not work with any of the internal renderers. I'm on the internal renderer right now in this session. When I use this, though, I flip over to the external renderer these days and get it all set and working the way I want. And then I convert the panning data over to Pro Tools panners. So I can basically have this deactivated. But I use this to initially set that kind of stuff up. There isn't anything else like this out there. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind thing, which is one of the reasons why I use this. There are some other auto panning plugins out there. As far as I've seen, none of any of those other auto panners will connect to a DAW's actual panner so that you can actually control objects. And that's really where I use this. I use this to move objects. I don't use this to pan within, like the bed, for example. I only use this with objects. So, Dolby Atmos Music Panner. Next plugin, Penio Pro Plus. This is an upmixing plugin, which basically will take a source. In this case, I usually use it on something that was stereo. It'll take that source and it will basically make it immersive, spread it out, and kind of fill the space in a way that you can't get from just like copying and pasting the same thing to different channels, that doesn't work. When you do that, your image collapses. It doesn't feel immersive. Up mixers, there aren't a ton of them out there for Atmos right now. This is my up mixer of choice. I did a more in-depth video on this. You can check that out in my channel. There's a link somewhere to it, wherever YouTube puts it. Next up is Move It from HAL Audio. This is an immersive panner plugin. Why would you need an immersive panner when you already have a DAW panner? Well, it's real simple, at least for me. Pro Tools panner is half-baked, in my opinion. If you have a track width that is wider than stereo, so quad, LCR, 5.1, whatever, anything wider than stereo, there is no panner in Pro Tools. Avid, come on. Why isn't that in here? Fortunately for us, HAL Audio has a plugin that can take care of that, and Move It is the one. I use this all the time on every mix. I did another video on this. You can check it out. I talk a little more about using it. This is on a 5.1 bus for me right now, but you can use it on full, I think 916. This is great. Also works kind of like a routing matrix. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this. If your DAW panner is letting you down because it doesn't allow you to have a panner for wider stuff, this is great. All right, let's talk about effects and specifically delays. Delays in Atmos are a lot of fun. I still use my kind of standard stereo delays, H delay, Echo Boy, probably bounce back and forth between those the most. There are a couple of specific Atmos delays that I use a bunch. The first one I want to show you is Lumina. Again, this is another one that I did a specific video on. I'll put the link to that if you want to check it out. Lumina is great. Where I use Lumina is when I have a very specific delay pattern that I want something to follow. When I want it to kind of hit there and then maybe there and then back. Like if I want something to sort of delay or echo in a very specific way, this is what I use because I can program that in here a little more easily than with some other things. The other delay I've been using a lot more recently is InDelay from Sound Particles. I use this for more what I would call static delays. I mean, they're not static, but where I want to just send something to the delay, and I'm using this more for kind of the feeling of space or ambience, or to just kind of do something cool where I want it to just sort of always be there, I guess, in a way. That's where I lean on this. This delay, for me anyways, does things a little more randomly, I guess, or at least that's what I use it for. So if I want to program something, I could probably do that in here to hit a pattern, but I think it's probably a little easier for me to do it in Lumina. And that's kind of where I delineate, do I want to use Lumina or do I want to use InDelay? They are two different animals in the way that you kind of approach things, I think. InDelay does kind of crazy stuff, and there's a lot of features and things in here. Lumina works more differently, and neither of these is the perfect delay for me right now. There is still some stuff that I wish I had in a delay, and that's part of why I still go back to the stereo ones a lot of the time. But right now, these are the delays I use the most. So if you're looking for a delay plugin for Atmos, and honestly, you can make your own delays in a DAW using multiple auxes and multiple delay plugins. A lot of times for me, though, it's a little easier to just do it with something that is dedicated for Atmos, and that's why I will use either Lumina or InDelay for that. Definitely check them out. Lumina's from Mountain Road DSP, InDelay from Sound Particles. Great stuff. Reverbs. Immersive reverbs. I honestly don't use a lot. The vast majority of the reverbs I use are still stereo, but there are a few that I have been using. First one I'll show you is Stratus 3D. I've used this a bunch. I'll either use Stratus 3D or Symphony 3D because I've had those for a while from iZotope. These were recently replaced, though, or updated, depending on how you want to look at it. The new version of these is Equinox from iZotope. I just picked this up within the last week or two, and it basically combines everything from Stratus and everything from Symphony into one plugin. And there are some other new features in here. The interface, in my opinion, is a lot easier to kind of wrap your head around and to work with. This unmasking feature, I haven't done a lot with this yet, but in general, this is a lot easier for me to kind of work with than those other plugins. I like reverbs with a lot of controls, but these go a little too deep for me sometimes. But this is what I've been using for immersive reverb. The other immersive reverb plugin that I do want to mention, though, is FabFilter's Pro R2. This is one of my favorite reverbs, kind of period. I use the stereo versions of this a lot. The immersive features in here are awesome, and I love them. However, this is a DSP hog. It uses a lot of CPU to do the immersive side of things, so I haven't been using the immersive version of this very much. I mean, every once in a while I might do it, and I've got some presets that I made for this that I love, but it is not very efficient on DSP. So I haven't been using it as much, and I feel bad about it because I love this thing. And honestly, if this was more CPU efficient, I probably wouldn't be using the iZotope stuff. I mean, I like the presets I've got in the iZotope ones, but I like this one better. So, you can check it out. I'm on an M2 machine. I think it's an M2 Max. I can't remember the exact chip it is, but it's still tough on the CPU to use this. So I haven't been using it. I feel bad saying that. I did a video on this, though. It is a great reverb, though, and you can check that out. So, Pro R2, definitely take a look at it. Might work better on your system, or you might not have 7 billion reverbs running, which is part of my problem. I have a lot of reverbs in my sessions. Maybe if I scaled those down, I would actually be able to use this. Another reverb that I use a bunch is Waves H reverb. This only goes to 5.1, but this is a reverb that I've been using this since it came out. This is one of my favorite reverb plugins of all time. And I'm probably a little biased because, if we scroll down to presets, I have some built in to this plugin. And that's typically what I use. I use my presets in here, and I still love this thing. So, if you've got a Waves subscription, or you might have this in a bundle, this is something I use quite a bit. Another reverb plugin that I use, I don't use this as much, but Black Hole Immersive. I was kind of late to the whole Black Hole party, and I started using the stereo one. I think it was last year I used the stereo one on a project for the first time, and I had so much fun with that. And I upgraded to the immersive version, and I'm starting to incorporate this a little bit more. But if you've used Black Hole, you know what Black Hole does. It's cool. It is fun. Definitely kind of its own thing, I guess, in a way, but I like this. So Black Hole Immersive. Other effects I use, I don't really use a lot, but I do use this Eventide micro pitch immersive. I replaced my micro pitch kind of stuff I was doing. If you're not familiar with this kind of idea, this is an old technique. I used to do it with an H3000 from Eventide way back in the day. Basically, it's kind of like a split harmonizer. You pitch shift one side up a few cents and the other down a few cents. I do 9 and 9, I guess. And I'm actually doing some other stuff now too because of the immersive side of things. But I think I usually would do like 9 up and 9 down, left versus right. Sometimes maybe 6 up and 6 down. We're talking cents here, by the way. And it just, it does a thing. It's an effect. You've heard it a lot because it's been in use for decades now at this point. I replaced the stereo ones I was using, and I think I was using Microshift from Sound Toys. This is what I've been using for that since I picked it up. And there's other stuff, like I know I'm not even tapping into this in terms of what I could probably do with it. I was afraid this was kind of a one-trick pony, but I think there is more depth in this than I initially gave it credit for. So if you're looking for effects, this is one to definitely look at. Eventide, if you have any of their stereo plugins, a lot of times they do upgrades on those, and that was how I picked up this. And the Black Hole one, I had stereo versions and just upgraded them to the immersive versions, and those upgrades were not that expensive, I don't think. So that's something you might keep an eye out for if you want to tap into these. But, give them a demo. If you're into doing like the micro pitch thing, you definitely should try this out. It's kind of cool to have that like around you. Beyond that, there aren't really a lot of kind of Atmos plugins I use. For EQ, if I need to EQ a bus, I use Pro Q4 these days. Pro Q3, though, I was using before Pro Q4 came out. Both of those had immersive capabilities. Like in this case, I've got it on my kind of immersive mix bus that I use. If I need to EQ that, I'll just use Pro Q4. If I need to do limiting on like a wider bus, I use the FabFilter Pro L2. I don't use this a lot, but if I do need a limiter that's 916 capable, this is the one that I grab. So just a couple of other plugins that are immersive capable, I guess, that I use, but most of the time I use those for stereo stuff. I mean, Pro Q4, I use all over the place. And I did a video on Pro Q4, but not as much on the immersive functionality because it doesn't necessarily have a lot of specific immersive functionality. I mean, you can EQ different channels specifically within it, but I just use it as like an overall EQ most of the time. So those are the immersive plugins I've been using for Dolby Atmos lately. What plugins are you using? What are things that you think I should check out? Please leave a comment below and let me know, because I know there's other stuff out there that I would probably love and might come in handy for me. So let me know. What are your favorite immersive plugins? What is something that you can't find a plugin to do right now in immersive? Leave a comment on that below. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.